Hello everyone and welcome to the channel. It's safe to say that in this part of the world where I live, summer is over and that means that modelling season has started up again. Yay! And I have some spare time on my hands. So the idea of this diorama is to be set in the autumn in France, 1944, and the whole point was to have a wrecked Jagdpanther in a town square or in a street or something, being passed by some British infantry, maybe a tank, and that was as far as I got when I planned it. So starting this diorama, I just used a piece of cardboard just to illustrate to myself in which direction I want to take this build and what elements I wanted to include. I'm thinking the tank has been damaged in some way and has been, maybe it's driven into a building or a cafe or a hotel or something, and it's been stuck there. So let's draw this cafe. I draw on some windows and some balconies and just let my imagination run wild for a minute while I do this. So this is what I pictured in my mind and hopefully what the end result is going to look like. I might be a bit in deep water here, but we'll see how it's going to turn out. But it's enough with the drawing and the illustrations. It's time to get on with the building. First I start off with some pieces of XPS foam, which I then cut down to size using an X-Acto knife, and after that I make some buildings also using the knife. Ideally I would have used a hot wire knife of some sort, a hot wire cutter, but those are quite expensive and I also don't have room for them, so we're just going to have to use a knife or a scalpel, and as you can see it's doing a fine job. No expensive tools necessary. I like the layout so far, but I do feel like it lacks some detail, so I'm going to add some immediately by making an arch stretching between the two buildings. And here I just use the lid of a can of biscuits and I use as the template. I make some other details as well, as these chimneys, balconies and this low broken wall that perhaps the tank ran over at some point. And as you can see, the arch looks pretty good, and yeah, this layout could work. Some while ago I supported a crowdfunder for a book called Buildings Tabletop Terrain from XPS Foam, and it's a great little book, and with it followed these. These are some windows, and there were also some other templates and stuff, and I'm going to use these in this building, in the diorama, and I'm sure you can get these online somewhere, but these are the ones I have and they are perfect for this, and as you can see here I just put them up at a random location using some string, and yeah, they look pretty good. So let's move on to detailing the building. On the first floor I imagine there will be some sort of shop or entrance with a large window and a door, maybe some signs outside. It looks a bit inviting. And on the second floor I'd imagine there were some windows and maybe some says cafe or hotel. I haven't really decided at this point, but I start with getting some piece of balsa wood and these beams, and I'm going to make this building look like an English Tudor house. It may not be appropriate having this sort of building style in France, but I'm allowing myself a little bit of artistic freedom here. So I'm making this frame for my Tudor style house, and as you can see down in the right hand corner of the screen there are some bricks there, and I'm going to use those to fill in the gaps that are going to be after I've assembled everything, and you can see that this is the shape I'm after, and yeah, I think this is convincing. I don't know how you'd build this Tudor house. I don't think it's with bricks though, but this is just a visual element, and for me that's good enough. But let's get back to the first floor. So here's our large window, and I'm going to add some more detailing to it with some sticks of balsa wood. Maybe some round flower sticks may come in handy. And then we're going to add a door of some sort. And then again we have to step into the I'm so sorry I didn't record this machine, because the next step I completely forgot that I was supposed to record. So I finished the first floor, as you can see here, mostly at least, with some finer woodworking, and yeah, pretty proud of this. This looks rather nice. So we're going to crack on, and sorry for the missing footage. There were some leftover parts from the spruce which the windows came from, and I'm going to use them now to make some details for the cafe, as you can see here, and I think that's going to improve it. Next thing I do is to create some bricks. Now I don't have a laser cutter, so I just have to use my X-Acto knife, and I use this ruler to make the bricks about 3 times 7 millimeters, and I find that to be quite a nice size for 1/35 scale. So it's a very tedious process, as you can see, but it works, so it's good enough for me. So let's go on to the second building and let's start detailing it. First thing I use is to glue on some pieces to make it more apparent that the building has 2 floors. And after that I just went wild with everything, so I just made some more details around the roof. I made another terrace, a staircase to get in, and yeah, I'm pretty pleased with this building. It looks like a bit more Italian inspired maybe, but I think this could well be suited in France as well, hopefully at least. I then saw an opportunity to add a bit more detail here on the shortest end of the building, and I added a window into the basement, or maybe a drainage, I don't know, could be both. And I used this aluminum mesh that actually supposed to be used to fix holes in cars, in the bodywork of cars, but it worked perfectly for this purpose. So this next part of the build is definitely what took the most time and was the most boring process of everything. And that's to make all the individual bricks of the brick building. And yeah, this took some time. I had to measure everything with my rulers and then cut it with a scalpel. And after that I used a toothpick to highlight the gap between the bricks in the masonry. And that took some time, but I'm very pleased with the result. This might not be the most effective way of doing it, but it works just about. And yeah, you can judge for yourself if you want to try it out. I can recommend it, but yeah, it takes time. After that you can use the toothpick to make some damage to the bricks, make it look like some of them have been placed further into the building than they should have, maybe them taking some damage. This is supposed to be an old and worn building, so some scratches and show signs of erosion wouldn't look too far off, I think. And again, back to another round of test fitting, this time with another layout with an AA gun and some ordnance maybe on a motorcycle arriving with some conflicting orders, maybe some insecurity on what they're supposed to be doing. I don't know, this could also be an interesting setup. We'll see how I conclude this. I also decided to make some attic windows, and just, I had these small pieces to spare, and I thought we'll use them. And I think that without altering the building too much, they add a very nice little visual element, and it makes the building come a bit more alive than it would otherwise. So the next thing I do is to cut off some thin planks of balsa wood. I'm going to glue these to the side of the attic windows so they look like a more natural thing. I'll presume that these things were added on later, that's why they're made out of another material than the rest of the building. But after the glue has dried, I use my scalpel and cut off the excess bits, and I then use a piece of cardboard to form the roof. I just use a piece of cardboard that a model came in. I think maybe it was a Sherman tank came in this box, and I just glue that right on to the roof. And as easy as that, we have a roof on our little attic window. What do you think? I think this looks rather nice. Just trim off the edges and we glue it on and we're good to go. So sticking with roofs, we'll get on with the roof of the main buildings. So here you can see I've made some roof tiles that I've cut out of this piece of balsa wood, and I just trimmed them to a shape that looks approximately right for this type of scale. And I just use some PVA glue, rather large amounts of it, which I am then going to attach the roof tiles with. I'm not sure if balsa wood is the ideal material for this because it takes some time to do this, and well, visually it's not perfect, I have to say. I would like to have some 3D printed or ceramic tiles ideally, but those cost a lot of money and I don't have that money. But balsa wood is very cheap, and the result of this is it's pretty good, I have to say. It doesn't look very authentic, but it's more than good enough for this diorama. Hopefully you'll agree. And here's the end result with the entire roof completed. I also made the tiles for the attic window. I think that turned out rather well actually for the scale. I'd still have some detailing left to do on that, obviously. But as you can see here, I've started filling in the bricks and the masonry of this building. And I used the bricks that I had cut out already previously. And then I put up some details here that I had left over from another building. Just to, you know, add some more flavors to it. But let's get back to the bricks for a second. This is how I use the bricks that I cut earlier. I put them in the gaps between the windows and the support beams of my Tudor style house and just squeeze them in so that it looks pretty nice like this. And with these smaller gaps like here, I just cut some of the bricks in half and fill them in like so. Then, since they protrude a bit, I use an X-Acto knife to trim them off. Remember kids, always cut toward yourself, and voila, it looks pretty good. Now we got an even surface, and you can just push the bricks around a little bit to make the gap between the bricks pop a little bit more, like so. And here's the finished result. Let me know what you think. I think this is very, very nice. I'm very pleased with this result, and it looks exactly like I'd pictured it. However, we are going to need some textures, and for that I'm going to use this filler, which I initially tried to dilute and then rub into the building, but that didn't really work, so I just used this filler as it came out of this tube and rubbed it into the styrofoam that forms the wall of the building, and the result was mixed, but eventually it was rather nice. What I should have done is use some very fine sandpaper first and then use the filler afterwards, but all in all the results were pretty good, and yeah, I think it looks nice and natural. And with that, it's the end of the building process for now, so the final step is to coat them with this light grey primer, and well, here they are, the finished buildings. Let me know what you think in the comments. I think they'll turn out pretty good. I like how the filler made some alterations to the surface of the buildings, and it looks more natural, it looks more gritty, it looks more lived in my opinion. But there are still some work to be done on the diorama base itself. Here I made a small piece of pavement that I'm going to put the hotel or cafe, whatever it is, on top of. And I also found the base was looking a bit too uniform, a bit too sterile for my liking, so I created this shell hole where an artillery round or a landmine or something went off, just to, you know, break up the diorama a bit more. So I armed myself with my X-Acto knife and these tweezers and just went about and tore up the styrofoam so it looks like a realistic shell crater, and I think it does. Then on the rest of the base I used some sandpaper, rather fine sandpaper, and went over the entire base like this. As you can see, I made some tire tracks here, and just to roughen it up so that I can put filler on that will stick. Just before the filler hardens completely, I use these tires and tracks to make some indentations and track marks in the filler, so it looks like vehicles have been travelling up and down this street several times. I just happened to have some Churchill track links laying around. They were broken from a kit I never completed, and well, maybe I should have used some different type, but I just used this one over and over, and it made a pretty nice effect. And there we have it. I'd say those are the big lines in this diorama drawn up, and I have to say I like the look of it. I think this came out pretty much like I had imagined it beforehand. I have made some alterations as I went along, but all in all, it's still very much the same build that I envisioned when I set off making this thing. But I think I'm going to end this video here because I suspect I'm pretty close to the 15-minute mark, and I think that's more than long enough for a video of this type. So we're going to have to do the final details and painting in another video. But please let me know what you think in the comments. I read all your feedback and I appreciate it greatly. Thank you for sticking all the way to the end, those of you who did. And hopefully you'll check out part 2 of this video when I get around to making that. Please feel free to leave a comment, leave a like if you like the video, and consider subscribing if you'd like to see more content like this. And as always, thank you very much for watching.